On this Friday night, the Prime Minister caught on a hot mic. Why Justin Trudeau said the U.S. president's threat to annex Canada is no joke. As Canadians sour on their southern neighbours.
The worst criticisms have been much worse than that and have contained words that cannot be repeated.
We'll visit one border community where tariffs are the talk of the town.
How can it help the economy? It won't.
Deadly pileup, the collision involving dozens of vehicles on a snowy highway. Plus, answering an age-old question, what this 4 billion-year-old asteroid reveals about how life on Earth began.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Prime Minister says President Donald Trump's threat to Canadian sovereignty is no joke. Justin Trudeau hosted an economic summit today to discuss the threat of U.S. tariffs. He addressed hundreds of business and labor leaders in Toronto, pushing to improve free trade inside Canada. But it was his hot mic remarks made behind closed doors that are now stealing the spotlight. In his most candid comments yet, Trudeau said Trump's threat to annex Canada is real and motivated by this country's critical minerals. Touria Izri has our top story tonight.
So as much as I know the media would love to stick around for the Q&A, they're not going to be able to do that.
The Prime Minister did not know his audio was still recording.
Are we safe now?
As cameras left, Justin Trudeau made comments only meant for people in the room.
I suggest that not only the Trump administration know how critical they keep talking about absorbing us and making us.
It's about time.
The hot mic moment was captured at an economic summit in Toronto.
And the message I want to send to Canadians is this country is strong. Don't screw with us.
There will be no messing with the 49th parallel period.
We will never be a state and we will never be a colony.
It's a 180 on Trump's 51st state comment, which Ottawa initially dismissed.
The president was telling jokes. The president was teasing us.
We don't need them.
In reality, they do. The U.S. relies heavily on Canada's critical minerals. 60% of its nickel supply needed for steel comes from this country, 30% of its uranium used for nuclear energy, and almost 80% of its potash needed for farming. Trump's apparent interest in Canada's vast resources raises more questions about what's behind the proposed tariffs and whether border security and the flow of fentanyl are really the motivation.
The best assertion of our sovereignty is a strong border, and that's what we're doing.
And with an increasingly unpredictable neighbor on the border, the Prime Minister is looking to strengthen ties overseas. He's traveling to Europe this weekend, where he's set to meet with European Union leaders and the head of NATO. And Trump is expected to loom large over those discussions. Jeff?
Touria Izri in Ottawa. Thanks, Touria. Canada added 76,000 jobs in January, beating economists' expectations and marking the third consecutive month of jobs growth. The unemployment rate dipped slightly to 6.6%, the largest job gains coming in manufacturing, which incidentally is the sector that would be hit hardest by Trump's proposed tariffs. The Bank of Canada is warning that even the threat of tariffs is already hurting Canada's economy.
President Donald Trump's threats of new tariffs are already affecting business and household confidence, particularly in Canada and Mexico. The longer this uncertainty persists, the more it will weigh on economic activity in our countries.
Trump's tariff threats and 51st state comments also appear to have unified Canadians against his administration. A new Ipsos poll for Global News found 68% of Canadians think less of America as a country in the wake of Trump's threats. 2/3 of Canadians also said they will avoid buying American or traveling to the United States for the duration of Trump's presidency. Heidi Petracek now on the growing divide between neighbors.
potter Brad Wiseman molded a life for himself in Canada after moving to Nova Scotia from Maine years ago and becoming a Canadian citizen in 2022.
I know why I'm here. I love being here. My wife's Canadian.
Now tension between the two countries over U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff plan, paired with the flurry of executive orders he signed in Washington, is making Wiseman nervous.
I'm worried about the politics right now. I think we need a little more empathy. But right now it's hurting us, and people are upset.
Recent booing of the American anthem at sporting events is evidence of a larger sentiment.
The election of Trump has not done anything for the reputation of the United States in Canada. To the extent it's had an effect, it's been quite negative.
An Ipsos poll for Global News finds 68% of Canadians think less of the United States because of Trump's tariff threats. The feeling strongest in British Columbia at 73%, and at 80% overall among those aged 55 and older.
Even people who I know and have had friendly relationships with actually say things to me like, I thought you were smarter than that. The worst criticisms have been much worse than that and have contained words that cannot be repeated.
This staunch Republican and dual citizen says she has experienced anti-American vitriol. The current state of affairs, she says, was avoidable if Ottawa had taken Trump more seriously months ago.
Sometimes I'm embarrassed to be an American. I didn't vote for this man.
But even as Canadians cancel their trips down south, this immigration lawyer is busy with inquiries from those targeted by Trump's policies who want to move here.
Such as trans people, LGBT couples. It's very stressful. These people are really stressed out, and we have to tell them there's nothing we can do unless you get a job here or you marry a Canadian.
Citizens on both sides are now adjusting to a new reality shaped by Trump's presidency. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Chester, Nova Scotia.
And turning to breaking news now, security officials say Chrystia Freeland's Liberal leadership campaign has been targeted by malicious foreign interference activity. Mackenzie Gray joins us now from Ottawa. So, Mackenzie, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Jeff, it is an extremely serious allegation. A panel of top federal security officials are alleging that the People's Republic of China is behind a coordinated and malicious activities associated with Chrystia Freeland's Liberal leadership campaign. Now, it's alleged the operation took place on WeChat, which is an extremely popular Chinese social media app, and it's been traced back to WeChat's most popular news account that experts have linked with the Chinese government. Now, the posts were then amplified by over 30 other WeChat accounts with articles that disparage Freeland, estimated to be seen by 2 to 3 million users worldwide. Freeland responded on social media tonight saying, "I will not be intimidated by Chinese foreign interference. Having spent years confronting authoritarian regimes, I know firsthand the importance of defending our freedoms." Now, WeChat campaigns against Canadian politicians have allegedly happened before, with the former Conservative MP Kenny Chiu saying he was targeted during the 2021 election due to his support for some foreign interference measures. Now, the information came late Friday night in a press release from a group called the Site Task Force, which has folks from CSIS, the RCMP, Global Affairs, and Canada's Cyber Spy Agency, all there to try and identify foreign interference during election periods. But this group going public with this level of detail is extremely rare. During the 2019 and 2021 elections, they didn't go public with any potential foreign interference concerns, Jeff, like they did tonight with the alleged attack against the Freeland campaign.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mac. As he wraps up his time as Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau is filling 3 of 10 vacant Senate seats. They include a former BC RCMP officer, a renowned economist and former diplomat from Quebec, and a Saskatchewan farmer who has helped to lead several agricultural organizations. The candidate submissions were reviewed by the Independent Advisory Board for Senate appointments. Up to 60 vehicles were involved in a crash north of Toronto during a snowstorm this morning that killed one person and sent several others to hospital. Sean O'Shea has been out speaking with drivers there and joins us from Orillia. Sean.
Heavy snow along Highway 11 about 150 kilometers north of Toronto caused chaos on the road and led to a multi-vehicle fatal collision here.
Southbound lane, everything blocked.
Heavy snow caused whiteout conditions along the highway, which was closed after crashes involving tractor trailers and other vehicles. As a result, drivers had to get off the highway and make their way along back roads, which were also snow-covered and largely impassable because of the weather. Drivers at a warming center said that while the weather was poor, other drivers were traveling far too fast for conditions.
There was so much snow blowing and also coming down, and the big flakes So your visibility was only about 10 feet in front of you. So by the time you saw brake lights, you better be stopping.
We had whiteout conditions. The visibility was very, very poor. Roads were covered in snow. So obviously that's going to bring in our slippery conditions. You mix that in with the visibility, it's hard for people to stop sometimes.
Police aren't saying how long it will take for the roadways here to reopen, considering the crash investigation and the fact snow is continuing to fall. Jeff.
All right, Sean O'Shea in Orillia, Ontario. Thanks, Sean. 2 men have died after a fishing boat capsized in rough seas off Nova Scotia last night. The Coast Guard searched through the night after an emergency radio beacon was activated some 18 kilometers southeast of Sambro. All 4 crew members were brought to shore, but only 2 survived. They've since been released from hospital. A 7-year-old beluga whale has been euthanized at Marineland in Niagara Falls, Ontario. The amusement park says Eos had suffered from several different diseases and infections. This is the 18th beluga whale to die at Marineland since 2019. It's believed that around 31 beluga whales are still there. Since 2020, provincial inspectors have visited that park more than 200 times and previously cited concerns over poor water quality. The showdown over a shutdown. Coming up, the anger over the U.S. president's plan to gut the country's lead foreign aid agency. A pair of rare February tornadoes turned deadly and destroyed homes in Tennessee overnight. 2 people were killed, a mother and her daughter, and at least 3 others were injured. Preliminary surveys show 2 tornadoes hit that region, packing winds of over 200 kilometers per hour. And turning to breaking news now, a U.S. judge has issued an order to temporarily pause the Trump administration's plans to put thousands of workers on leave at the U.S. Agency for International Development. President Trump and special government employee Elon Musk have moved to dismantle America's foreign aid agency, putting life-saving health programs in jeopardy. That agency has been in place since 1961 and delivers billions of dollars in aid worldwide to help alleviate poverty, drive vaccinations, and assist with natural disaster recovery. As Candice Cole reports, the Trump administration is slashing the agency's staff down from thousands to just hundreds.
Thousands of workers for the U.S. Agency for International Development have been forced onto administrative leave.
This reflects exactly what Elon Musk did with Twitter when he laid off 80% of the staff. It signals pretty much the death knell of this particular agency.
The USAID website now appearing with a single statement from the Inspector General advising overseas personnel they are not required to leave their posts within 30 days, something the Trump administration previously mandated. Now, the unions representing thousands of government employees domestically and abroad are suing the Trump administration, calling the dismantling of the department, quote, illegal and unconstitutional. Key humanitarian and foreign aid projects in over 100 countries now face an uncertain future.
Until 2 weeks ago, there was a malaria team with world experts, and they are gone.
While Democrats on Capitol Hill lead efforts to fight back,
we will fight their violation of civil service laws.
Republicans have praised plans to eviscerate USAID staffing from 10,000 employees to a meager 300, many undervaluing the agency as just a charity.
When you look at USAID, that's a fraud. The whole thing is a fraud.
This sudden shutdown could open the door for adversarial actors to step in.
If the U.S. withdraws internationally from its leadership position and from the assistance that it gives to other nations, others will jump in, namely Russia and probably even more so China.
Canada has been a longtime partner with USAID. A spokesperson for International Development Minister Ahmed Hussein said the shuttering of the agency is a, quote, dangerous retreat that risks decades of progress in fighting inequality, starvation, pandemics, and authoritarianism. Jeff?
Candice Cole in Washington. Thanks, Candice. A small plane has crashed on a busy street in Brazil, killing the pilot and the plane's owner. The twin-engine aircraft hit the ground so hard that debris careened into a nearby bus. At least 6 people were injured. Catastrophic collision course coming up. Scientists predict if and when this asteroid could strike the Earth. The European Space Agency is monitoring an asteroid that has a 2.2% chance of hitting the Earth in 2032. Called YR4, the asteroid was first discovered in late December and has risen to the top of the Space Agency's risk list.
Seeing that the impact probability that we are assessing has been changing from day to day.
Astronomers say they should have a better idea by April of whether it remains an impact threat. An asteroid of this size hits Earth on average every few thousand years. Last year, NASA carried out a collision test demonstrating it could alter the path of an asteroid that might otherwise hit the Earth. That could be devastating, of course, but a few billion years ago, an asteroid impact may have helped life on Earth begin. Scientists, hoping to learn more, recently extracted samples from an asteroid called Bennu. And as Eric Sorensen tells us, a Canadian who's studying the dust has found some of the building blocks of life.
And liftoff of OSIRIS-REx. It was an audacious idea. Fly to a distant asteroid called Bennu and bring back rubble, hoping to learn about the origins of life. Our planet, remaking itself with organisms constantly evolving, doesn't have the original building blocks any longer. But Bennu has spent 4 billion years circling the solar system, unaltered and timeless.
The Earth is always changing, but asteroids have not changed. And so it's really like taking a time machine back 4.5 billion years and seeing what the building blocks for our planet, what the building blocks for life were actually like.
So much of the universe, black holes, dark energy, is almost incomprehensible. But little Bennu captured our imagination starting 9 years ago. OSIRIS left Earth and will now chase the asteroid for 2 years. We learned just how big the asteroid was. And when OSIRIS reached Bennu, it took another 2 years as Canadian mapping technology found just the right spot. And an arm 3 meters long will extend and touch the surface. 120 grams of ancient dust and grit was gathered up and put on board for another 2-year journey back to Earth in 2023. Success was always going to come down to the final few hours and minutes. 3.5 billion kilometers round trip, and the OSIRIS capsule was back in perfect condition.
Sample collection is complete.
So, what did we learn? It seems scientists hit the jackpot. They found salt minerals, amino acids, and the basic components for DNA and RNA, the chemical ingredients necessary for life to begin on a planet like ours. Canadian researcher Michelle Thompson says asteroids like Bennu may have delivered those building blocks.
We were hoping to find evidence for organic molecules. We hit that out of the park. We were looking for hydrated minerals that were rich in water. We've identified those. The mission has been successful, I think, beyond even our wildest dreams.
Bennu is still circling in the solar system. In the next century, it could actually threaten to hit our planet. But in this century, tiny Bennu is teaching Earthlings a little more about how we got here. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
A stream in Argentina has turned a deep shade of red, sparking fears that chemicals are leaking or being dumped. The waterway runs through a popular area on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, which is home to tanneries and other industries. Locals have long complained about pollution there, but say they've never seen anything like this. Samples have now been collected to identify the substance and whether it's toxic. The tale of two border towns. Up next, we'll visit this Quebec community where Americans are literally their neighbors to the south. Welcome back. Trump's tariff threats are the talk of the town in both Canada and the U.S., and particularly in communities where Canadians and Americans live side by side. That includes Stansted, Quebec, which is right up against the border, and just across the street is Derby Line, Vermont. Our Mike Armstrong spoke with residents on both sides for their perspective on these turbulent times.
The border in these parts can get complicated. The line runs pretty close to right down the middle of this road. Houses on one side are in Canada, on the other they're in the U.S. Canadian Peter Gerard grew up on this street with his best friend living in another country.
He lived in the house right there, the 2-story White House.
Now what that meant was that for every visit, he was supposed to drop by customs.
Yeah, we'd walk down the road and say, hey, I'm going to so-and-so's place, and be like, okay, and we'd bring your passport.
Well, the rules also mean a journalist crossing the street to speak to Americans has to first check in at the border. It's close enough. Cameraman Jeff Stephen could shoot from Canada, and too close, perhaps, for the president to appreciate.
He can't relate to a lot of things. I don't think he has any inkling.
Stansted, Quebec, and Derby Line, Vermont are in many ways one community. And on both sides of the line,
it's on everybody's mind.
Tariffs are an issue.
How can it help the economy? It won't. It's going to make things worse.
The first automobile in Canada came from here. A local jeweler built a steam buggy unveiled at the Stansted Fair in 1867. Cross-border trade has always been vital to this area and still is. Gerard exports cars to the U.S. Tariffs bumping his prices up 25% would shut that down.
We have a lot of good relationships down there, a lot of, really nice people and stuff, so it'd be really a shame to have to restart everything that we've built.
Now, there is one place here with two addresses, one in each country. The local library was built in 1901, literally straddling the border. That tape on the floor is actually the border line. Well, Donald Trump's new Secretary of Homeland Security visited last week. Kristi Noem was meeting local border guards and dropped by the library.
I gave her the tour.
Volunteer Kathy Converse says she was taken aback by what Noem did crossing the tape.
She stepped over, a couple of her crew too, stepped over the line and said, 51st state. It was insulting, and I'm American.
This community has watched border security get tighter and tighter for years, especially after 9/11. Many are now bracing for what comes next. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Stansted, Quebec.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is this coyote, apparently unbothered by the snowy weather near Edmonton. We love seeing Your Canada, so please keep emailing your photos to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here again tomorrow. Have a great night.